In the world of politics, one thing is certain: power breeds suspicion. But what happens when power breeds something far more dangerous? Corruption. The recent scandal involving Ed Miliband, the UK's Energy Security and Net Zero Secretary, and his brother, David Miliband, should send shivers down the spine of every taxpayer, every citizen, and every public servant who claims to have integrity. The scandal is more than just a political blemish. It's a window into the rot that festers within government when accountability is thrown out the window in favor of family ties and personal gain. Make no mistake, this isn't a case of minor indiscretions or minor lapses in judgment. This is a major political and ethical failure, and the silence from the Milibands is deafening. Let's break it down. The UK government has been doling out vast sums of taxpayer money to corporations linked to the net zero push, a noble goal, no doubt. But what happens when government contracts, specifically those worth millions, are awarded to firms with direct connections to those in power? The Miliband brothers are at the center of this web. Ed Miliband, who heads the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, presided over the awarding of a £1.1 million contract to Vian Group UK, a consultancy firm. At first glance, this seems like just another government transaction. But here's the catch: David Miliband, Ed's brother, just so happens to sit on Vian's global management board. Now, does this pass the sniff test? Are we really expected to believe that this is mere coincidence? Are we really supposed to accept that this is just a case of proper, ethical business practices in action? No one is buying it. And they shouldn't. There is no getting around the fact that awarding millions of pounds in government contracts to a company tied to your family raises major questions. The optics are terrible, the implications more so. This isn't a minor slip-up, it's a glaring conflict of interest. Governments cannot afford to be this blind to the potential for corruption. The stakes are far too high, and the trust of the public, already fragile, can ill afford to be further undermined by such egregious lapses in judgment. The lack of transparency here is shocking. We are not talking about a small, inconsequential contract. This is a staggering sum, and the fact that Ed Miliband is still holding his position without so much as a public explanation is an insult to the public's intelligence. It speaks volumes about the culture within government. Rather than be forthcoming and transparent, Ed Miliband and his department have remained silent. And that silence, it is deafening. It suggests one of two things. Either they are guilty and hoping this will blow over, or they simply do not care about the perception of impropriety. Neither option is acceptable. In either case, they are failing in their duty to the British public. It is not just the immediate financial implications that should concern us, it is the long-term political ramifications. The idea that an ambitious net zero agenda, worth hundreds of billions of pounds over the next few decades, could become a cash cow for political insiders is enough to make anyone question the sincerity of these lofty climate goals. Who benefits from these projects? Is it really the planet? Or are we simply creating new avenues for a select few to line their pockets with public money? Let's not forget that the public is already shouldering a tremendous burden. Energy bills are higher than ever, and millions of families are struggling to keep their homes warm. Meanwhile, the UK's energy strategy is being shaped by politicians who appear to be more concerned with securing contracts for companies linked to their families than with addressing the real economic pressures facing citizens. The average household now pays over £1,800 annually in energy bills, and it's only going to get worse. The very people who are supposed to be acting in the public's best interest are instead playing games with taxpayer money, risking the financial stability of ordinary citizens for their own political and financial benefit. If the Milibands believe this is just a case of bad optics or guilt by association, they are gravely mistaken. The issue here is not merely the appearance of corruption, it is the real possibility that public money is being funneled into the pockets of political insiders. The public desires to know if proper procurement rules were followed, if there was an actual competitive process for these contracts, and if there was any undue influence at play. So far, there has been a conspicuous lack of accountability. The silence from Ed and David Miliband is unacceptable. The people of the UK are entitled to answers, and they should not be expected to just let this slide. There's no easy way to spin this one. The Miliband brothers must either demonstrate that no unethical practices were involved or step down immediately. and the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero must be subjected to a full investigation to ensure that these contracts, and any others awarded, were not tainted by favoritism or conflicts of interest. If this is allowed to slide without repercussions, then the government will have officially declared itself as beyond reproach, and that is an untenable position for any democracy. In the end, the message is clear. The public's trust in government is not something that can be bought off with spin or silence. The stakes are high, and the people are watching. If this scandal is not investigated thoroughly and swiftly, it will confirm the worst suspicions of a disillusioned electorate, that government is not working for the people but for the elites who pull the strings behind the scenes. The time for silence is over. The time for accountability is now.